what? Crypto crown, drifting lambos through your town. Hodlers better buckle down, 'cause it's the final countdown.
Well, welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Corona Cave more like this morning, as I just found out that there's several more cases in Helsinki. So this might be one of the last videos ever, but you know what? Gotta go out with a bang. So with that said, I want to be wishing everyone a happy and healthy start to your new week, a Monday of new opportunity perhaps as well, as we do wait for the traditional markets to open back up alongside Bitcoin, which is already open, of course, doesn't close, but that is going to present a few very interesting actually short-term scenarios right now, but also long-term as well. So with that said, I do want to make an announcement that as I hit everything on my left side right and over here, I do not think I'll be on Twitch today because I do believe that game servers are all down for maintenance today, unfortunately. And but if they're not, I will certainly be on. I will make an announcement in the Discord in the relevant sections. On top of that, as far as the Krown trading app goes, massive update just being pushed right now. It's in the infancy stages of it, but the trading journal is now live. I will say, or actually let's get on to it right on over here. I will say that the trading journal right now is kind of in like its infancy stage. We are going to reskin it and make it a lot more presentable and a lot more nicer looking, probably by the end of the week, I'd imagine. But right now it's only linked to Deribit, which is an exchange that I used to use quite often and then had a little bit of a falling out with them. But I've actually gone back to them recently because they're the only exchange that has fucking liquid options, or like something resembling liquid options, because there's not really any other alternatives in this space right now, unfortunately. So I do have a link to the exchange in the description of this video, and then of course the app will actually hook into your API, so you have to give you'll have to do that yourself, and it'll pull only the first 1,000, or sorry, the last 1,000 trades that you've done, because right now, again, it's still kind of in its infancy stage, and we want to make sure that there's not like any sort of catastrophic data sort of fuck ups. Anyways, what else do I want to say? Yes. Oh yeah, that's right. It's almost a 2-year anniversary of this place, and so I'll give everyone a warning right now. I will have a 20% off period for all the programs, all existing programs plus new programs to come during that time. So if you are interested in them, just hold off for another week or two. I think it's like another week or so, and then they'll be significantly cheaper. So just heads up warning on that. And what else do I want to say? I think that's just about it. So I want to wish everyone once again a happy and healthy start to your new week, and the best of the best and the happiest of the happiest, as we like to say, and focus on some Krown Trading app over here, which can be found at app.krowntrading.net for 100% free. Anyways, looking at the open interest, we have lost a few more million from yesterday to today. We're seeing it slowly but surely kind of curtail itself back, which is exactly what we've been looking for the last couple of weeks, born off that first initial 20% move, which we spoke about on the 2-day historical volatility percentile, which lined up perfectly with the open interest above like 1.6 billion on this baby right on over here, now crumbling down, and I do believe that's going to open up the whole weeks of opportunity right now. So let's go to some charting action right now and see what's going on over here. And starting off with Bitcoin, no, traditional markets, SPY. What are we looking at over here? Well, looks to me like traditional markets are very likely to open up this week. I do think that traditional markets are probably going to be having at least a little bit of a bounce here. Very likely going to open the day up, probably come back down. Let me actually put this back on some candlesticks, whatever the fuck that means, and put back on all these major movement averages. As to me, it looks like, hey, how come this looks so different? Oh, that's right, because I'm on the 2-day, not the daily. Yeah, so the daily right on over here, I do think probably going to rally back up somewhere right around like 305, 306 today. And preps open up somewhere right around there, as I do believe futures are pointing towards like a 200-point open right now, up open I should say. I would look for an initial pullback to start off the day, back down somewhere around this low $300 number, or upper 290s region, but I would be looking for that to be an opportunity and probably continue upwards and onwards. As we said, the big news here, or the big thing here that I'll be focusing on, is this massive spike in volume, and I'd imagine that historic volatility percentile is also completely red as well. Yes, it's exactly redder than the devil's dick at the current moment in time. So this is really good for me to look at this as very likely a local low. Doesn't mean that we can't come lower, but I would be looking at this at least for the time being as a nice opportunity, probably probably bounce back up to the to the lower end of the 300s, and then we'll come back and figure it out after that. My point is though is that we see strong correlations between Bitcoin and traditional markets. They seem to trade together quite a lot, regardless of what you see around the cryptocurrency space with hedges and all that bullshit, which is I actually spent this weekend not doing too much trading, but going around YouTube and looking at all of the fucking video titles with Bitcoin being the financial collapse hedge, and Bitcoin's people just haven't realized that Bitcoin. I watched this video of this person trying to like search around their words. Like it was very clear that they were reading off of a script, most likely. But they're like searching around for their words of like why Bitcoin's not acting as a hedge, and they're just like, well, maybe people just haven't realized it yet. That's exactly right. The market is wrong. You are right. Exactly. So when fucking hedge, baby. Because it looks like to me that when we line these two babies up, not even looking at the mass of this, which we've shown a million goddamn times at this point, but just looking at it like this, putting it back on some line chart action right on over here. Come on, let's go back to the 2-day perhaps. There we go. And there we have it. Bitcoin in the light cyan color right on over here. SPY, the traditional markets major Boris in the darker blue. And what do you know? Just looking at it with your naked fucking eye, not even using all of the sophisticated math tools that we have, looking at correlation coefficients, looking at R-squared, looking at covariance models. Just looking at it over the long period of time, I would like to know when fucking hedge. Looks to me like when they're rallying, both of them are rallying. When they're both following, well, traditional markets fall at about 10% correction levels to 15% correction levels. Bitcoin does that to the tune of 70%. But when fucking hedge? And more recently, we do see that traditional markets having a major, massive down, perhaps one of the biggest downs that we've seen in quite some time, going all the way from about 335 all the way down to where we are right now at about 295, 296. And Bitcoin taking a tumble last week as well. Both down. Funnily enough, hold on. Funnily enough, let me go see a SPY chart first. We do see that we had about a 12.5% down. What about Bitcoin? What did Bitcoin do on top of this? Did Bitcoin also do something of similar note? Perhaps from the last high to where we are right now, 18.5% down. One fucking hedge! Where's my fucking hedge? What the fuck hedge? Sorry, I get very excited about my hedges, but I'm just curious, when this financial collapse comes around, when hedge? When fucking hedge? Jesus Christ, man. Anyways, the amount of delusion within this market and the cheerleading that goes on with talking about financial collapse is going to be great for Bitcoin is just, as of right now, very, very, very misguided. And I just do not understand the perpetuation of this myth that we've seen. Could it change at some point in time? Yes, absolutely. But does this chart look like a fucking hedge to you? That's exactly right. It does. You're right. Bitcoin goes down 6% more in the last week than traditional markets. So it's a great hedge for your shorts. It's a better hedge to short. Anyways, to put it back on the math once again, I'll quickly flash this. We have a correlation coefficient showing a 0.59, R-squared measuring the efficacy of that, measuring the fit of that regression essentially at 0.68. That's extremely fucking high, and your covariance is even looking even better. So with all of that said, I just want to put the highlight on that when people talk about this financial collapse coming and they look at Bitcoin as like the harbinger of good things to save you from all the bad, mean people dumping on the traditional markets, it's just not been true. And more importantly, people compare Bitcoin to gold, right? Saying that Bitcoin and gold are similar. Well, let me show you what happened during the last financial crisis for gold. And let me actually just get rid of this right here. And we can just go back on over here into gold, and we can put this on a weekly as well. And my beautiful gold bar hedge in 2008 during the financial crisis was negative 28 by basically 30 fucking percent. So a little bit of an issue here. And I just want to say that for all the very highly esteemed cryptocurrency YouTubers and cryptocurrency Twitters, first off, when hedge? Second off, what the fuck? What the actual fuck? Anyways, that's what I was doing this weekend, just basically looking at a bunch of bullshit. And and gold not looking all that good during this hedge as well. Hey, what happened to that hedge? Why do we have a bearish engulfing dildo on my hedge coin? Like, what the fuck, you know? Things look like they want to come down here as far as gold goes. As far as traditional markets go, I would be looking for an initial pullback as the market opens and a little bit more of a serious tone now. I would be looking for traditional markets to pull back a little bit to kind of like test where we closed last Friday, and then probably bounce from there. I do think that it's actually quite likely that we have, at the very least, a very, very nice medium and in short-term low to be working off of, and probably work our way back up into this region right and over here, and perhaps even a long-term low as well. Even if traditional markets do come back down, which would imply that Bitcoin comes back down with it, again, regardless of what all the fucking cryptocurrency enthusiasts say out there. And again, I myself am one of them. I actually do believe in Bitcoin long-term, but we have to call a spade a spade. As traders, that's just not helpful to not be dealing with reality. This is reality right and over here. And so if traditional markets do come back down, I would be looking for it to create some sort of divergence play, probably somewhere right around like 270, 275-ish region, maybe like a slightly lower low. But looking at it historically, we are at extremes here, not just on historical volatility percentile on like a daily read. I mean, even on like a daily volume read, we are at historical levels. I mean, this is akin to what we saw during the last major correction, which actually was trading traditional markets during this time in 2015, right and over here. It ended up coming down a little bit lower, yes, but it did create a massive divergence play, and that was a humongous opportunity. So my point is that if things actually do, if things do rally back up here and then curl back down, I would probably be looking for a major low to be put in relatively soon after a current low, probably somewhere around like 260 to 275-ish region, if that even does happen. Historically speaking, when we print this much, this amount of volume, we're doing it on extremes. And if we go back just a little bit further, well, we actually don't have too much price action history here on the daily dildo time frame. We can see that this is very, very considerable, kind of what we were doing back in 2008, 2009, back down here as well. Although on a weekly it won't show it because the whole week was like not as impressive, but on a daily, on a day-to-day basis, pretty damn impressive. So I do put quite a bit of weight on that, at the very least for a short to medium term bounce. And then if we do get continuation over the next couple of months to the downside, I don't think that it'll come all that much lower, maybe like 275, 270-ish region. And if things do start cracking that region, then it's probably likely that everyone's already dead from coronavirus. So there won't be anything there. The fucking orange magic money pills over here are very unlikely to do much at that point anyways, unless if coronavirus accepts Bitcoin for not fucking you up. Anyways, going over here to Bitcoin and doing a little bit more onto Bitcoin, keeping that in mind, I do think that Bitcoin probably is going to bounce it up a little bit today. This failure to get continuation below that 8,500-ish push that we saw yesterday is likely to align with a little bit of a bouncy bounce here. And looking at the weekly, yes, the weekly did not have a good close at all whatsoever, but any sort of it does kind of imply that we could very easily get a move back up to test around the red 10 simple right here, which is 8950-ish region. So I do think that Bitcoin's probably setting up for a bounce alongside the traditional markets as well. Medium term or to maybe longer term, does it have more downside to go? Perhaps yes, but as it stands right now, this failure to break down with all the bullish divergence plays kind of emerging makes me hesitant to say that we're going to see continuation of the downside on Bitcoin like immediately. We probably see it bounce back up alongside traditional markets when they open up later today at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then we'll kind of reassess back after that. Again, the same sort of ratings that we've been looking at for Bitcoin are still very much relevant. I want to take off these alerts right here just because they are getting in the way and being a visual eyesore. But what we're looking at is essentially the same, right? This 8950-ish region right in over here. Bitcoin can pop back up there, test it. That would also be the weekly 10 simple, and it wouldn't really do all that much for the medium and higher timeframes. For the shorter term timeframes, it does offer up a nice little edge. Of course, that's a $300 trade from this price point, so very much very much tradable, of course, but it's not until Bitcoin gets back above 8950 where it even does anything different on the medium term time frames, at which point I would look for extension all the way up to about 9150 to 9200-ish region. If Bitcoin can get back above there, I would switch around my bias to bullish, but it's exactly as we've been saying for the last few weeks. As soon as Bitcoin broke below 9600, 9550, that switched the bias from bullish to bearish, and we can just move it down level by level now. But the most important level for kind of like declaring this as a potential bear trap is back above about 9150, 9200. So until then, when hedge talks are on hold, unfortunately. But for right now, things are kind of building up a lot of divergence plays, and I think most momentum oscillators are probably turning back up again as well. We see 4-hour Stokes turning back up here. 4-hour Joule is giving like a soft buy signal. It's actually a pretty decent signal, although I want to see if that's consistent on CMEs here too. Kind of, yeah. Not as beautiful, but potentially forming. Anyways, going back to regular spot charts, go see how the other lower time frames are. They aligning with this? And yes, indeed they are. We see 3-hour Stokes up, 2-hour Stokes up, hourly Stokes up. Well, way up there, but that's okay. And it looks to me like it also looks to me like if we go back here to BitMexico, that we are kind of bucking the trend on the hourly RSI. Not that it matters all that much, but we do have bullish divergence, I believe, present all the way up to perhaps a 12-hour. Yes, we do, although it's not confirmed just yet. We need to confirm this as a local low, which will be had if Bitcoin can either trade above this current high right here to about 87.69, which would initiate that next move probably up towards, actually probably at the very least up to 89.50, and perhaps even more than that, up to 9,000, 9,050-ish region. Or if we close, well, no, I'd say that this becomes confirmed as a local low if and only if we do trade above this little prior high right here. If that can happen, then yes, bullish divergence is present certainly on the 12-hour, and we will see 12-hour Stokes turn back up as well. And keep in mind that this region in the 12-hour Stokes, historically speaking, has been some nice turnarounds. Not necessarily saying that we're going to like reverse back onto all-time highs or anything like that, but good enough for at the very least short to medium term time frame bounce. So relevant areas to the upside is going to be 89.50. If that area gets taken out, then 91.50 to 9200. That's the big test, though, if Bitcoin actually can get up there. If it can get above there, start closing some time frames that actually matter, like a 4-hour, well, not even really a 4-hour, but like a 12-hour daily above there, then I would be looking at this very, 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 very likely as a bear trap, and we're going to pop, and you should see like a clean move probably very, very quickly to 9600, relatively speaking, and that's going to start to make this really look like an overall bear trap. But until Bitcoin does that, the disposition here is bearish, and with traditional markets correcting extremely hard, I do think that Bitcoin can spend some time, especially frustrating a lot of people down here, while traditional markets kind of resolve themselves out. But if traditional markets do confirm a major low in this region and really like V bottoms back up today and tomorrow, especially Tuesday, I would look at that as overall good for Bitcoin, and overall likely to imply that Bitcoin probably doesn't, is not going to like make any major new lows like below, let's call it 7,000, this last little this last little major low that we saw here on a weekly. But here's the thing, with the weekly, we did officially lose the exponential on the RSI. We also did or are in the midst of crossing the weekly Stokes to the downside as well, although not as big of a death sense for sure. But more importantly than that, we did just get a new monthly, right? We're now in the month of March, which is great because March is, well, I don't fucking know, but not very helpful. But we got a few things to be aware of right here, right? We do see that the monthly is showing the red 10 simple right around about 8,900, so it's consistent with actually the weekly 10 simple as well at about 8,950. We see momentum oscillators kind of angled down right now, although these could very easily turn up. And guess what? That sounds so fucking arrogant. But I would imagine that if Bitcoin does start to get back above 9,200, these will cross back up to the upside, and this will look very, very good once again. But monthly RSI, kind of floundering here again. It will regain the exponential if Bitcoin does go back above 9,200 for sure. However, for the time being, we are below. And most importantly to me, checking out the accumulation distribution indicator, the good old net delta indicator right in over here. Hey, you motherfucker, where is it? There it is. We can see that we've actually sustained the same negative slope that we put in just a couple months ago in January, which was really, really concerning. That was like the biggest concern coming into this current year. And that has been the most dependable signal from a long-term analysis standpoint. The slope of this signal, not whether it's red or green, I don't care if it's red or green, I only care about the slope, has been very, 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 very consistently getting major highs and major lows and humongous pivot points, macroly speaking, on this market. So that maintaining the same negative slope, which is pretty damning, actually it would be a better way of saying it, is not looking all that good. Let me just make sure that I'm recording. I am recording. The microphone's working as well, so you've been hearing all my when hedges and fucking autistic outrages. I do apologize about that. But until we actually start to flatten out and lose this negative slope, I really wouldn't be looking for like a long-term bottom to be put in. And I do think if Bitcoin does take another leap to the downside, 7,500 is going to be a very, 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 very likely area for for some good long-term action. But again, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Let's go back into the weekly for a second here. So at what point would I be looking for continuation to the downside? Because these lower time frames breaking over the weekend did not get any follow through. I would say that now that we're kind of back into the regular trading week, any sort of a 4 hour, this is not going to be all that helpful. I want to apologize in advance, but you do see that, technically did close below the blue box, which I had at about 85.50, but only by a smidgen, like literally $13. We closed 85.75 and a half, or sorry, 85.35 and a half on the lowest closure right here. So is it really broken? No, it's not. We can just move this down. I know that this is probably like the biggest bane of technical analysis. People say, you're just moving it. You're right. Yes. But when we're talking about a break that is literally like $10 off the area, it's not supposed to be that fucking exact anyways. So I would be looking at this still as kind of like an actionable area to judge the next sort of breakdown. As it is right now, we are still downtrending. We got lower lows and lower highs, and we are kind of making a descending triangle right here as well. But that's going to be again negated by any sort of a move back above 87.69 on Mexico, or even like a 4 hour dildo closure above like basically the same level essentially. And then I'd look for a move to the top side of the more preliminary range, which we can actually nail down a little bit more and put its own blue box right here. But keep in mind, again, this one doesn't really change all that much. Only changes around the short-term time frames. If Bitcoin can start to close 4 hour dildos back above this, I would look for extension of $300 to this region. That's where things actually can change. So again, just going level by level here. And of course, if Bitcoin does break this to the downside, then I would be looking for extension all the way down here towards 8150 to 8150, give or take a few bucks. And that should be in line with not only our last major low coming in from late January, but if we go over here to a daily, it should be our 377 exponential moving average, a very, very good long-term moving average for long-term macro cycles, which by the way is where SPY is trying to hang on to right now. It actually did close above on Friday at the very last seconds, which is actually very, very good signal, at least for the short term. And on top of that, we do see that the weekly 55 is kind of angled right there as well, which is not all that relevant, to be quite honest with you. But it would very likely be at the very least a bounce area for the lower term timeframes, and I would be looking for a big bad bounce from that region if Bitcoin does decide to head down there first. So to kind of like wrap up my thoughts on that, and I really want to be and I don't really want to commit to a single side here because I don't feel all that confident. Is just it's just going level by level. As simple as it is, it does look to me like Bitcoin's a little bit more likely to perhaps test 8950-ish region, especially if traditional markets bounce as well. But I'm skeptical that it actually gets back above. I would take trades in this region. I would take. I don't even want to play the breakout to the downside if it does happen. I'd rather take trades on the periphery and just scalp plays here. I'm not looking for long-term positions in Bitcoin, only for short-term scalps. And again, that's just my trading personality. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It's just what I prefer to do right now. All major moving averages on on lower time frames are obviously bearish, but let's see how that kind of mediates on the higher term time frames. We do see some bearish crosses of some higher time frame moving averages, namely the 12-hour 21 and 55, and also the daily 10 simple and yellow 21 exponential moving average. And all major moving averages are starting to get a little bit of a negative slope. But if we did rally back up to 89.50 and reject from there, that that wouldn't really change all that much. And we are going to see perhaps even daily Stokes turn back up as well later today. So, do I think that we're more likely to see a bounce here? Probably yes. I do think so. I think another obvious thing that I could be looking at in standardizing price action for is if Bitcoin gets a daily little closure above 8750-ish region, we very likely will see a move up at the very least to 8950. But still, at that point, I still have to stick with my guns and say level by level is going to be the way to go here, because this is an area of a little bit of fackage, and I really want to see what traditional markets are doing this week because it's very likely to set the tone for Bitcoin. Anyways, looking at the 2-day, we still got 2-day momentum also just pointed down, but I don't really see that as a huge deal. In fact, the 2-day RSI looks a little bit bouncy to me. 3-day, what else we have as well? Same thing with 3-day Stokes and 3-day RSI, so more or less about the same thing. I do think that Bitcoin probably ultimately has a little bit more downside here to go, but I'd be happy to be proven wrong especially if Bitcoin can print back above 89.50. That's where things start to look a little bit different to me. But for right now, it's still kind of chugging its way along. I know that everyone's excited about the halving, but I I think there's more tangible things on the board, and people looking for $20,000 before the halving might be a little bit misguided here. Anyways, I want to see if there's anything obvious on the historical volatility percentile reads. I don't really see anything on the lower term timeframes. They are still contracting a little bit. So contraction, in this region here, as Bitcoin technically is still in a descending triangle, but it doesn't look like it's going to play out. Maybe we can nail this down on CMEs. Does CME have the same sort of thing? CME does not have the same sort of thing, funnily enough, but does it have bullish divergence on those same timeframes? Yes, we do see it on the 4-hour. 4-hour likely is setting up for a move to 89.50ish region. I do think that probably does happen. What about a 12-hour? Is there anything obvious here as well? Are we building bullish divergence here? We are not. What about a daily? Well, obviously not if we don't have it on 12-hour. But what's the highest time frame that we do have bullish divergence present on? Looks to me like a 6-hour. And 6-hour target on that would probably be around 89.50ish region, and potential to go more if it can close above there. Of course, extending the target for another $300, of which that's where things get very, very interesting. Let's do. I do want to check back in on the weekly right here. Yeah, weekly would show 10 simple coming in. Yeah, right above 9,000. Very consistent with spot marks as well. So Bitcoin does work its way back up there. I'd be looking for at the very least a short-term pullback from there, and probably that would be a good cap on the rally. If Bitcoin does get it, we still see the same issues with momentum oscillators here, like RSI, weekly RSI rejecting the bullish control zone, back down below the exponential as well. I do think that it probably does base somewhere right around here, but that would also imply some more downside on the on the higher term timeframes over this next month. So, early this week probably does bounce a little bit. After that, though, I'd be a little bit skeptical, assuming that Bitcoin doesn't get above our critical levels, even on the short and medium term, on the medium term time frame. As long as that doesn't happen, don't really see anything different, and that's kind of like the issue with what's going on right now. Of course, we should talk about a little bit more downside targets if it does indeed happen. Although I do think that Bitcoin probably bounces here first. We are going to see that volume profile is going to be showing the point of control coming in right around that 8150ish level. So 8150 to 8100ish region, extremely likely area for a big bad bounce. If Bitcoin does lose that region, I'll be looking for back down to the mid to low 7,000s most likely. Longer term, that would be a nice area, I do think. So overall, I don't think that Bitcoin's headed down to fucking 5,000 or 4,000 or 3,000 or 1,000 like some people are saying as well. I think it's very important to keep like a level head on this sort of price action. That conversation does not come into the vicinity until Bitcoin really breaks below like 7,000 on a weekly closing basis. That's when things have like really broken down here. But I do still think that this price action here is corrective for the rally that we saw from January to end of February, and it was a very constructive rally. I do want to give credit where credit is due, but again, as traders, on a day-to-day basis, things change around quite a bit. So what else do we want to talk about while we're here? I want to go back to the lower term timeframes and match up our ranges, our proverbial ranges, by taking off the volume profile and looking at the expected moves chart and seeing, hold on, let me get rid of these moving averages right there, and let's put on the blue boxes of peace and prosperity or death and destruction. And what do we see here? Well, the 4-hour is saying that it's actually quite unlikely that we do break to the downside today. Less than 16%, in the next 4 hours, less than 16% chance between now and the next closure. But let's go to the 12-hour. That's when it starts to really, have some good efficacy from what I've seen long term. And what do we see here? We actually do see the probabilities are a little bit more on a downside break, technically speaking, because we do see the bottom side of the first deviation well below about $100 below our blue box territory. That actually changed things to the downside right here. But by the same token, to the upside, 89.50 is within the first deviation for the top side of the first deviation. So it is saying 68% chance likely that we probably do just oscillate between here and play blue box to blue box. In the lower term timeframes, don't really change around all that much, and then we'll have to come back tomorrow and see where they kind of angle us once again. But it would say that the probabilities it would say that we are kind of squeezing to the upside here, and to me that says that we probably do test the upside here, even though the probabilities are on a downside break, because the bottom side of the first deviation is well below our bottom side breakout point. But keep in mind that our next, if we did break to the downside, very, 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 very unlikely we'd actually break below that on the same day. I would feel extremely strongly about a very nice bounce from this region, 8150-ish region, give or take a few bucks. As that's where the second deviation is to the downside, so less than a 2.5% chance that we break below there, probably about by around end of today. So let's go check out the daily as well, see how this matches up. And Same thing here, essentially not really getting all that much different results than the 12 hours, slightly different, but I do think that the 12 hours is a little bit tighter and gets things a little bit better with this, even though technically speaking, the formulas are actually more applicable to a daily. I've just found in my experience that the 12 hours seems to work a little bit better, and I think it's because that by the time that I record these videos, 12 hours from now is around the daily total close, or a little bit less than that perhaps. So yeah. Also, just speaking about the upside, remember 9150 to 9200 is where things really start to change from my perspective. Like looking at this as a bear trap and likely to go back to 96 and really realistically like 5 digits after that. That would be less than a 2.5% chance that we do get above there in this next 12 hours worth of trading period as well. So again, I think it's more likely that Bitcoin kind of fills out the range a little bit, probably tests around 8950ish region, but assuming that we get a rejection there, I'd look for follow through to the downside overall. As the higher time frames do suggest that momentum is still waning to the downside. Okay, let's go check out some of the other top the other top shitcoins. We got Mr. Buteau right on over here. It looks pretty much the same as Bitcoin. We do see actually no, Mr. Buteau is much more bearish. In fact, we do see on this consolidation with these lower highs and lower lows that as this is consolidating, we do see that the red 10 symbol and the yellow 21 exponential moving average are looking to cross lower. But momentum also is so beat up here. Does it happen before we get a bounce? It looks very similar to Bitcoin right here, consolidating on the lows. Technically has a descending triangle as well. If I had to call it here, I'd basically say the same thing as Bitcoin. It looks to me like it probably does have another, another test of the upside of the more preliminary range, and then I'd still, assuming that it doesn't crack any critical areas, and for this one that would be about like 240. I think 240 to 245. Let's see, 243 to 245 is what I'd say. I'd still remain overall bearish on it. Remember that the weekly has confirmed as of yesterday, its closure, hidden bearish divergence of some pretty hefty magnitude between this local high right here and this local high right here. I do think that we are going to set up for a test down to the 10 simple over the next couple weeks, most likely low 200s. Momentum oscillators also looking like they want to cross down here. Weekly RSI. I mean, it's not like super in trouble. It just has that hidden bearish divergence present. I think that long term we're probably doing something like this on Mr. Buteau. It's like some sort of a reaccumulation formation in the form of an ascending triangle on the lows, which actually doesn't happen all that often. But we did see Bitcoin bottom there on the last market cycle, off a similar formation in the last market cycle, and we actually see this kind of consistent amongst most of the majors with a potential ascending triangle coming off the lows. So we do have higher lows in place, but this can take some time to really resolve itself, and I wouldn't really look for resolution on this until actually later this year. It would suggest that we probably break somewhere around here between October and November of 2020. So I do think that it's going to be more or less ranging for most of the year, and the halving hype is mostly just that. What really makes me what in the butt? Jesus Christ, can't even fucking speak. What really makes me kind of err on the side of more downside overall is Mrs. Litecoin right here. Mrs. Litecoin has led this market plenty of times, both to the upside and to the downside. And we do see the weekly closure below all major moving averages. Most importantly, the 200 simple, the 21 exponential moving average, and well, everything's kind of angled down here. Not only that, weekly Stokes coming down, weekly RSI, losing the exponential, hidden bearish divergence printed all along the way between this, or actually no, it does not have hidden bearish divergence. I apologize. But nonetheless, I do think that it's probably gonna get ready for a move over the next couple weeks back down a little bit below $50 between like 45 and 48 region, and give a test towards this trend line. And this looks eerily similar to our Buteau chart now, doesn't it? On top of that, we can go check out Ripple's Nipples, and Ripple's Nipples doing the same thing, closing below all major moving averages. I do think that it probably rallies back up, maybe 24.5 cents, which would be akin to like Bitcoin rallying back up to 89.50ish region. But as long as we're held below there, the long term bias is bearish. Weekly RSI not good. Weekly Stokes not good. Getting rejected from the same area as well. We'll go look at the darling of the market, see how she's doing. Link Powerful Linky versus the Cones. Again, I own absolutely nothing of this, even though I've been singing its praises for like 2 years now, and I feel silly for not. I actually feel very, very silly for not. Weekly close was phenomenal. I do think that this is going to get continuation overall. On the daily, it doesn't look as impressive on the daily. In fact, probably have some major bearish divergence dealing with on the daily. In fact, we do. But what is that essentially aligned with? Maybe it comes back down. It comes back down to like 42, 500-ish region. But overall, I do think that over the next coming weeks, it's going to be pushing off to new all-time highs versus Satoshi. So it looks good. So yeah, let's go check out gold as well. How's gold doing right now? Gold bouncing up to start off the week. Let's see how that holds up when traditional markets open up. I do think kind of the same thing here as I do on Bitcoin. Bounce up a little bit, maybe back up to test around the 10 simple at 1620. But as long as this thing is operating on a daily total closing basis below 1620, I am not bullish on it. I do believe that the high is, and I do believe that a major high is, and actually a major high, which is going to precipitate the next major move to the downside. More medium term speaking towards like 1520 to 1530 range, and if it does fail that region, significantly lower over time. The monthly close was catastrophic, I do believe, and any sort of a move below the current low of that monthly delta at 1550 is going to really tick off the next sort of era of continuation. However, the monthly right here is not like it certainly could push its way through, of course, but I'd look for the daily 10 simple to kind of be the signal line for that. So as long as we're below there, bias is certainly still bearish. But if we can close above this region, or if gold can close above this region, more accurately said, again, that being about 1620 to 1625, depending upon when we kind of approach it from, I would get bullish back on it again for a move to the prior high and beyond. That would actually be a very obvious area. But as you can see, we're still well and far away from that region, and I'm not. It can go either way. When I do look at the daily, it doesn't look as bad. We do have potential hidden bullish divergence in play here if this can confirm as a local low, but it's going to take at least another day before this confirms as a local low, if it even does. So I'd still go with the former assumption until that's had. Other than that, I think that, or let's actually look at the dollar index and see how this one's doing. It's getting crushed as well. This is not good. Well, not good for the dollar, of course. Good for dollar pairings though. And what do we see here? Sorry, let's go to a monthly. Let's look at the long term of this. We did hit our $100 target actually, which is kind of nice. But this not so nice, I would say. Not very nice at all, indeed. So I'm actually not getting too much from the monthly there. I'm going to get rid of these trend lines. I don't think that they're all that helpful. I'll just be going level to level on this one as well. It does look to me like it probably does want some downside. We have some do we have bearish divergence here? No, not really. These points are a little bit too far out. I'm more or less undecided on this one. I do think that it could come back down to $97, but that should be the lowest out of the range. It doesn't really come into issues until it starts to actually print lower lows on the weekly, which would be below that $97 region. So perhaps something to monitor over the next month or so. But right now I don't really feel too actionable on that one. Anyways, back onto Bitcoin. Let's wrap this bitch up and send you off because it's already 37 minutes into this video, and I've just been yelling at your head the whole goddamn time, and I do apologize about that. I do apologize about my very annoying outbursts, which are probably probably scared about 90% of people away from this channel by this point. Anyways, looking at this right here, it does look to me like Bitcoin, it's had so many chances to push below this level. I do think that is probably aligning with a move to the top side of the more short-term range, about 89.50. I would be looking for a pullback off that if it does reach it. But I don't really have any like breakout plays to be had, and I wouldn't even be taking the breakout plays to begin with above this region. Well, this one's a lot more obvious, 89.50 to 9200-ish region. Above there, I do get bullish on the on the longer term time frames. However, if Bitcoin does close a 4-hour dildo below, let's call it like 85.30-ish region. Which we technically closed below 85.50-ish yesterday, but again, these things are not like super exact. 85.30 is, or 85.37 to be exact, or 85.37 and a half to be exact on Mexico. It's really not all that different. I wouldn't be looking for that next continuation drive to the downside, but if that were to happen below our current low at about 85.30-ish region, let's call it, I would look for a move down to 8150, at which point I think Bitcoin's going to be gearing up for a pretty damn big bounce. Other than that, I'll be signing off now. I want to wish everyone a happy and healthy start to your week once again. I don't think I shouldn't say that I don't think I'll be on Twitch later tonight, but I think it's maybe a little bit unlikely, especially if server maintenance is the same shit as last week. So with that said, wishing you well once again. Take care, and until next time.